spend any time around kids, whether it's your own kids or kids, you're working with kids or you're helping kids or you're in a family with lots of kids, whatever it is, there is a phrase you're going to hear over and over again. And it's the phrase, that's not fair. It's not fair. For kids, that's like the ultimate value is fairness. Now, what a kid means by fairness is if they see that anybody has received more than they have received, that is not fair. That's their sense of fairness. It's really kind of rooted in selfishness. They wouldn't dare think of fairness if they had been given more than others had received. But boy, lo and behold, if they notice someone else has more than they have, that is not fair, because to kids, their ultimate value is fairness. And the question I'm asking today is, should it be? Should our ultimate value be fairness? Because if fairness is what we really want, I know that there's some good things about fairness. Those who are in authority should be fair with those under them. We should treat people fairly. But if fairness is our ultimate value, then think pragmatically about the words that would be lost in our vocabulary. Things like forgiveness. That's not fair. Unconditional love. That's not fair. Redemption, reconciliation, mercy, compassion. Or how about this one? Generosity. Being generous. You would not have the opportunity to be generous with someone because generosity is not fair. Grace is not fair. In fact, there is a value that far exceeds fairness, and it is being generous. Whenever you look in Scripture, you see that fairness does have value. If we're in authority, we should be fair with those under us. We should treat people fairly. But there is a value that exceeds fairness, and it is this value of being generous, of generosity. To be generous with people is to go above and beyond. It's to go the extra mile. It is to give them blessings when it is not deserved. Now the question is, why would we do that? Why would we be generous with people and give blessing to them when it's not deserved? And the answer is simple. It's because our God is a generous God. Our God is a generous God. He gives freely, James says, without finding fault. Our God lavishes His love on us. And one of the great illustrations of the generosity of our God is seen in the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 20, when Jesus tells the story of an owner of a vineyard. It's a story of a landowner who has a vineyard, and it's harvest time. He's trying to collect the grapes, and he can tell he needs a lot more help. And so he goes to an employment agency, similar to what we would do today, to get some more workers, and he hires them. At 6 a.m. in the morning, he hires them for 12 hours for 1 denarius. It's a going wage, it's fair. They agree to do it and work that wage. But as the day goes on, he realizes, I got a lot more work than I've got workers. And so he goes back at 9, at noon, at 3 to hire more. And then at the end of the day, when it's an hour before quitting time, he hires some more. So at 5 o'clock, he gets some more workers to come in. And when the day's over, he pays all of those workers, the ones who worked 1 hour and the ones who worked 12 hours, the same. He gives them a denarius. Now, those who had worked 12 hours, they're furious. And they cry out, that's not fair. It's not fair. Now, it wasn't fair. It just wasn't fair in the way that they thought it wasn't fair. Because in reality, Jesus makes the point that the owner of the vineyard was fair with them. He told them he'd pay him a denarius for 12 hours work. He gave him the denarius. He paid it. He was fair with them. The ones he was not fair to were the ones who worked less and got paid the same. He wasn't fair to them. He was generous to them. John MacArthur puts it this way. The charge against the landowner of unfairness was not grounded in a love for justice, but in the selfish assumption that the extra pay they wanted was pay they deserved. Wow, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is going to be kind of like this. There will be those who all their life have served faithfully and they've paid a price and a cost to follow Jesus. And then someone else is going to come in at the end and they too are going to get the reward of heaven. Because God is such a generous God. I think we make a huge mistake when we think somehow we deserve it more than they, when in reality, they don't deserve heaven and we don't either. That God is being so lavishly generous with us. And so when we come to this story, the landowner says, are you envious because I'm being generous? It's in moments like that that I realize it's easy for me to point at a little kid and say, man, look at that immature, selfish little kid who wants everything to be fair. And it's moments like this I begin to realize, you know what, sometimes I'm just that immature, selfish, big kid. And when you read a parable like this from Matthew 20, may it just remind us that we ought to give thanks to our God for His generosity. And we should celebrate generosity when it happens to us, but also when it happens in the lives of others. God, thank you for being so generous to me.